Welcome to the second half of the Waypoint Mode video. If you haven't already, I recommend watching the product overview and basics video on Waypoints. In particular, it's worthwhile to watch the last section where I take you through the 8 key functional steps in building a Waypoint mission. I'll be following that workflow in this video. Let's assume that I've taken the time to research the location that I want to create a mission for, and I know roughly what I want to do. My next step will be to get into Waypoint mode and start to create my waypoints. Similar to other modes of Autopilot, there are tabs for basic, intermediate, and advanced functionality. For the most part, I'm going to stick to basic and intermediate features, as the more advanced stuff is primarily intended for expert users who are already familiar with Autopilot. For those that want to learn the advanced tab features, I recommend that you spend time reading in flight school. We may also release a follow-on video with advanced features at another time. The first thing you should do is select the default altitude and default speed for your waypoint mission. You can now edit your mission on the mode control screen, but I recommend that you tap the map button in the toolbar. This will bring you to a full screen map view in either portrait or landscape mode that you can use to plan your mission. A blank map will have a single plus circle on it. When you're in the full screen mode, there are a few buttons that you'll want to be aware of. In the top left, there is a flight plan folder, which can be used to save or load flight plans. To the right is the options window, which will change based upon where you are in the mission creation. In the bottom center, there is a map position icon, which lets you move the map to a different location, even searching for a specific address or landmark. And finally, there is a map layer icon, which brings up a menu to change the view of the map and the level of the details showing. For now, I'm going to primarily just keep waypoints markers on. To help you understand how to create a mission, I'm going to create a basic mission with 3 to 4 waypoints and then add 2 focus triggers. We'll expand on this basic idea and you'll start to see how to create a very complex mission. Realize that the difference between this and this is just more waypoints and/or more focus strategies. If you can do 3 to 4 waypoints, you can do 32. So let's start by creating 3 to 4 waypoints. There are actually 5 different ways we can do this. The first way we can do this is to press and hold on the screen, and it will prompt to have me add a waypoint at the start. After that, if I press and hold a second location, it will ask if I want to add a waypoint at the end. I will now press and hold one more time to add a third waypoint at the end. You'll notice a few more options popping up in the window, but let's ignore those for right now. There are actually 2 ways to clean out the waypoints in the mission, and I'll show you one now. If you click on the map window, there is an option to Restore Defaults, which not only deletes all the waypoints, but it also resets the settings, the altitude, the speed, etc. We can also create new waypoints by clicking on the plus. Let's first create a waypoint the old way, and then let's click and hold the plus and drag and drop that to create a second waypoint. We can then drag and drop it again to create a third waypoint. A third way to create waypoints is to draw a line. First, create your first waypoint. You'll then need to make sure that Drawing Markers is on under Map Layers. You can then drag the pencil to draw a line for the path that you want to fly. Autopilot gives you the option of creating fewer or more waypoints based upon how close you want the quad to follow the path you drew. For ease of organization, I recommend being minimalistic. The fewer waypoints, focus triggers, etc. that you can create to accomplish the same behavior, the better. Fourth, we have the ability to import KMZ and KML files from Google Earth. Send a file to your device via AirDrop, text message, email, etc. Once the file is available on the device, Autopilot will appear as one of the available apps capable of opening the file. Open the file and it will import the waypoints. Finally, if we're actually in the flight dashboard, we can fly to a point and use the Select Aircraft Position to create waypoints. This will save not only the aircraft position, but can also save the gimbal direction. Now that we have some basic waypoints, let's show a few ways that you can customize the waypoints in the path, as well as the map itself. Let's start by checking the default altitude and speed to make sure it's where we want. Now let's click on a waypoint to get a pop-up window that'll show information about that specific waypoint. If I tap on the box, I bring up a menu that allows me to change the altitude and speed for that specific waypoint. Note that the altitude of the waypoint shows in the teardrop itself. Now let's move a waypoint. This is as simple as tap, holding, and dragging one of the waypoints. As we showed before, we can add a waypoint by clicking on the plus and dragging to the new location. We can then delete that waypoint by clicking on the waypoint, bringing up the settings, and clicking delete in the upper left-hand corner. Note that if you put two fingers on the map, you can actually tilt it to give yourself a 3D rendering of the map. Now let's look at the map layers. From here, I can switch the map view to satellite, standard, terrain, or hybrid. You can also change the size of the icons and turn off or on some other map-related features. For now, I want to turn on segments. Segments are numbered markers between the various waypoints. One great thing you can do with segments is click and drag one that will actually create a new waypoint between two existing waypoints. Again, if I don't like that waypoint, click on it, bring up the settings, and delete it. If I click on the settings menu, you'll see that the menu has changed a little bit. Let's go back to the map and create a closed loop mission. I can do this by adding a waypoint and dragging it to the first waypoint. Autopilot will prompt me to ask if I want to make the path end the first waypoint. If I want to change that, the easiest thing to do is to go to the settings, make sure that you're in intermediate functionality, and change the endpoint from first waypoint to last waypoint. Now let's talk about the waypoint reference icon. Think of this as where all the waypoints are measured from. If you can't find the icon anywhere, click and hold on the map and select Waypoint Reference. Now, if you click and hold the waypoint reference, you can actually adjust to move the entire mission to another location. This can be useful if you want to create a search and rescue pattern and run it somewhere else. If you click and tap the waypoint reference icon option, you get a few other things that you can do. You can reverse the icons, move the reference point to make it the center of the waypoint mission, and this is also a very easy way to delete all your waypoints without resetting all of your other settings. One more thing. If you switch the settings to advanced and go back to the waypoint reference mode, you could also rotate and fully transform the size of the mission by dragging the small icon that is connected to the primary waypoint reference mode icon. It's time to discuss creating focus triggers. Think of focus triggers in three parts. First, what the focus strategy is. This can include looking at the item as well as being focused in a direction or even giving you the ability to control the camera during that portion of the mission. Second, what the camera is looking at. And third, when the strategy is going to start and stop. When I created the three waypoints, I turned off the focus triggers to keep the map cleaner. Now that we're ready to do that, let's turn the triggers back on and turn the waypoints and segments off. As you can see, when I created the waypoints, it created a single focus trigger by default. This is the first focus trigger, and it is special in that it cannot be moved or deleted because there must be a focus strategy defined for all locations in the path. By default, the first focus trigger is set to subject strategy, meaning it points to a particular location, and this point is marked by a teardrop icon with a 1 on it. I can drag and drop that point wherever I want. A focus trigger with subject strategy really has two parts: a focus trigger subject point and a focus trigger path point. The focus trigger subject point is the place where the camera is focused. The focus trigger path point is when in that path the focus will become active. If I tap the box for the options, you'll see the other details. In basic mode, I can change the focus strategy. Similar to other modes, I can set direction, which allows me to decide which direction and pitch to point the camera, joystick, which lets me control the camera with the right joystick, touch, which allows me to change the focus based upon where I touch the screen, and device, which changes the focus based upon where I point my tablet or phone. Passive is used to leave things alone, typically to allow a secondary controller with an Inspire to control the camera. In intermediate mode, it's basically the same thing, but I can also change the altitude of the focus point. I'm not going to go into advanced during this tutorial. Let's add a second focus trigger. If you are planning to have Autopilot focus on a particular location, I think the easiest thing to do is to long press on the location and choose New Focus Trigger from the Use Location menu. You'll see that Autopilot dropped a 2 on my map. As I did with the first trigger, if I tap on the 2, I can bring up and modify the options for that trigger. Based upon this, you can see one of the great powers of Autopilot. You can have focus strategies defined separately from the waypoints, which means you don't have to keep creating useless waypoints just to change the camera orientation. That is, waypoints are for movement only. Now let's show how to impact the timing. If you tap on the 2, you'll see a line drawn back to a different circle with an S on it. Now I can drag and drop the circle anywhere on the path. That circle defines when, as well as the focus strategy that will be active when the quad reaches that point in the path. If you click on either S, you can see which focus trigger subject point it is associated with. I'm going to show you two tools that will help make this clearer: Path Inspector and Mission Preview. If I long press on the screen and select Path Inspector, you'll see a magnifying glass. If you tap and hold that magnifying glass, you'll see a line from the magnifying glass to the path and then an aircraft triangle. You'll see information in the box about the aircraft's position, course, altitude, speed, and which direction the gimbal is pointed. As you drag your finger along, the information changes in real time. The triangle representing the aircraft is pointing in real time at the camera icon, which shows the overall direction of the camera. Another fun way to watch this is to tap on the Path Inspector tooltip, which will start the mission preview. The aircraft will automatically move through the mission in real time, and you can see where the aircraft is focused. If you tap on the aircraft and then tap on the aircraft tooltip, you can speed up the speed of the preview 2 times, 4 times, and then back to the beginning, stopping. Now let's go back to our focus triggers. If you use the Path Inspector or Mission Preview, you'll see that at the beginning of the mission, the camera is focused on the subject of Trigger 1. Once we shift to the second S, the camera immediately shifts to the subject of Trigger 2 and stays there for the rest of the mission. I can easily add additional triggers the same way. Let's add a little cinematic flair to this. If I go back to Trigger 1 and select the options, you'll see an option at the bottom that shows up when there are more than 2 triggers: Subject Interpolation. Let's change this to Next for number 1. Now for this to work, we also need to modify number 2. Let's go to the settings for number 2 and change this to Previous. As a note, if you look at the focus trigger path point, you'll see the S change to an S minus for next and a minus S for previous. And if you select both previous and next, you'll see a minus S and then a minus after that. Now let's use the Path Inspector to watch what happens now that we've made this change. You'll see that the focus point smoothly transitions from focus point 1 to focus point 2 between the 2 focus trigger path points. Since I don't have a third focus trigger point yet, the camera will stay focused on number 2 until the end. My favorite part of Autopilot is the power that it provides to create incredible cinematic visual shots, triggers and interpolation, unique focus strategies, and our customized flight controller make Autopilot's Waypoint solution the most powerful solution available. Everything we've discussed so far can be done before you ever take off. In fact, it can be done before you even leave your house. When you get to the location, you should obviously go through your standard setup, pre-flight checkup, and calibration. However, it's worth the time to re-review your overall mission before you take off at the location. I'll stress again the need to check your altitude, your timing, and your overall path. What you're watching is a relatively simple sample mission that was created where the relative altitude was not carefully checked enough before takeoff. The pilot thought the trees were 70 feet up, so they set the altitude to 100 feet. The problem was that the altitude was off by 30 feet and the pilot just managed to clip the top of a tree, resulting in a crash. A tough, expensive lesson. We are basically ready to go, but there's one other decision that you can make before you take off, or you can make this decision after you've already gone out and tested your mission. This is mission type. of which there are currently 3 options. The first option is Patrol, which by default will go from the beginning of the path to the end of the path. In Intermediate or Advanced mode, you can set it to go through the mission multiple times, either circular in a closed loop mission or back and forth in a mission with a start and an end. Second, there is Mark, which creates another circle called M on your path. The quadcopter will go to that point in the path and stop. You can even quickly drag the M to a point in the path, and the quad will fly there on the shortest route along the path. The third option is Joystick. This allows you to control the quadcopter going through the mission manually. Pushing forward on the right joystick makes the quad go forward to the mission, pulling back makes it go backwards. It will move relatively to the speed you have set and how hard you push on the joystick. At this point, you're ready to go. If you've flown with Autopilot previously, you'll notice that the Waypoint mode acts the same way as the other modes. First, enter the flight dashboard, engage the aircraft, and start your mission. You need to have the switch set to F first, and then you can decide if you want to engage the aircraft from the ground, or do what I do. I personally prefer to fly the aircraft to a safe point and then engage the aircraft from the air. Go through the checklist, confirm that you're ready to go. Autopilot will count down and then fly to the first waypoint and start your mission. At this point, you can sit and watch your handiwork as the quad flies the mission you created. However, because the missions are not running directly on the quadcopter and instead are using Autopilot's flight controller, you can actually modify the flight of the mission as it flies. You can modify the path of the mission, add a segment, modify the height, whatever, all while in the middle of the flight. We recommend being very careful when doing this. Again, you don't want to accidentally set the height or the location to a place that you haven't reviewed pre-flight. Another one of the great things you can do with Autopilot and Waypoints is easily store and share a Waypoint mission. If you look in the description of this video, I've included links to full, complex, as well as the simple missions that you can open in your iOS device running Autopilot. It will automatically load the mission, and you can look at, modify, and even run that mission yourself. Saving a mission is easy. Just click on the folder in the upper left-hand corner, and you can type in the name of a mission. Missions can even be synced with your account, so you can easily load missions across your own multiple iOS devices. Sharing a mission is also easy. Again, just click on the folder, and you can pass the URL to a friend via email, text, whatever. In addition to the fun side of being able to create a mission for a friend and send it to him, it allows you to create more complex missions that could be flown by pilots in other locations. In any case, as stated before, please be careful to check the mission before you launch. Finally, if you configured Healthy Drones integration, that data is automatically also passed and is shareable with others, regardless of whether or not they have Autopilot. Before we go, let's take a look at a more advanced mission. This sample mission was created for an 18-hole golf course. You can quickly see how sophisticated a mission can become. To me, this is where the ability to turn off and on icons and information you don't want to review and run Path Inspector or Mission Finder to check your mission is so valuable. Focus trigger subject and path points have been set throughout the mission on the tee boxes, fairways, and greens for each hole so that the green will follow the path of the golf course while remaining focused on the correct part of each hole. Interpolation was also used to create an attractive flow between golf holes. In the description for this video, I've included a link to the 4K version of the golf course video, as well as a link to the mission that you can load onto your iOS device running Autopilot. I'm not going to go into the how in this one. You could spend some time in the follow video if you want to learn more, but I think this is worth mentioning. Autopilot's implementation of Waypoint Mode and how it uses a flexible reference point allows a variety of powerful things. One of these is the ability to do an ongoing waypoint mission while following a moving object like a car. Wow. One last interesting mission. Here is an example of how you can build a mission by flying and using the aircraft position and the camera direction to mark waypoints and create focus triggers. The big difference between this and DJI's waypoint implementation is that we also allow you to track and store keyframe-like gimbal views and directions. Autopilot uses this information to create smooth video transitions between each waypoint, creating an effect that is perfectly focused on the items that you want. We know that people have been looking for this feature with Autopilot for a while. I think the learning lessons we gained from implementing Zipline, Focus, and others helped us make the Autopilot implementation of Waypoint Mode even better. There's so much more that can be done. Please post your exciting mission and results to our user group. Have fun and fly safe.